So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Temerty Innovation Grants information session. My name is Zoriana, and I'm the Center Administrator for the Temerty Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Education in Medicine. For short, we call it T-CAIREM. For those who might not be familiar with T-CAIREM, it is an interdepartmental center at the University of Toronto that serves as a focal point for collaborations among healthcare providers, trainees, researchers, computer scientists, engineers, and industry to advance healthcare through artificial intelligence. T-CAIREM has three themes under its umbrella: research, education, and infrastructure. If you have not had an opportunity to become a T-CAIREM member yet, please visit our website at tcairem.utoronto.ca to submit your membership registration. At this time, let me introduce you to two T-CAIREM research co-leads who will speak to you about the innovation grants. Dr. Anna Goldenberg trained in machine learning at the Carnegie Mellon University with a postdoctoral focus in computational biology and medicine. Her research is currently focused on developing machine learning methods that capture heterogeneity and identify disease mechanisms in complex human diseases, as well as developing risk prediction and early warning clinical systems. Dr. Goldenberg is a recipient of the Early Researcher Award from the Ministry of Research and Innovation. She is strongly committed to creating responsible AI to benefit patients with a variety of health conditions. Dr. Mjaye Mazwi completed his cardiology and critical care fellowships at Children's Hospital in Boston with the Harvard Medical School. His clinical appointments are as a staff physician in cardiology and critical care medicine at the Hospital for Sick Children. His research roles include the William G. Williams Directorship in Cardiac Analytics and co-leading the Artificial Intelligence in Medicine Initiative. He also directs the Clinical Translational Engineering Program in critical care that aims to create translational technical infrastructures that drive gains in clinician inference and patient outcomes. Dr. Mazwi is a founding member of the Lonson Labs research group at the Hospital for Sick Children, an investigator in translational medicine at the SickKids Research Institute, and an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. Dr. Goldenberg and Dr. Mazwi will now provide you with more information about the Temerty Innovation Grants and will answer your questions.
Good day, everyone. Delighted that you could all join us. We wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of what these innovation grants intend to foster in the community, and then answer any questions that you have. As many of you might have seen from the online application portal, we identified innovation here as high risk and high reward ideas. We in fact used the word outlandish, with the objective of having applicants for this award bring essentially what we hope are your bravest ideas about how we can transform healthcare over the next 20 years. A lot of medicine is defined by boundaries, and some of these are boundaries that are necessary simplifications. Some are artificial boundaries that keep us in disciplinary silos. We define ourselves by our organ system of interest, by our disease process of interest, by our age group of interest. And one of the things that we are seeking in this call for applications is for researchers to deliberately try to transcend these boundaries and pursue research that provides a holistic, ideally sort of cradle to grave view of human health and disease. And then ideally use diverse data sets, new technologies to improve both patient outcomes and the process of care itself. And we do this with the goal of stimulating a collaborative community focused on ideally not just innovation, but also the actual implementation of these solutions in medicine. Next slide, please. In this first year, T-CAIREM will be offering 2 grants. Each of those is $200,000 in total. And to be clear, that's a single $200,000 amount that can either be used over a year or over 2 years, depending upon the nature of your research proposal. The application deadline is the end of this month, so April 30th. And we'll have a slide coming up in this presentation just reminding you of how to access the portal. But you'll be submitting this using a PDF application form on our website and then sending this to the center administrator. Next slide, please.
The Temerty Innovation Grants eligibility criteria are relatively few and hopefully least constraining to enable the vision that Mjaye has spoken about. The project must utilize AI to demonstrate what the future of healthcare would look like. One of the principal investigators on the application must have a T-CAIREM affiliation. So this does not preclude, for example, students from being principal applicants without the need for faculty. Priority will be given to interdisciplinary project teams. And this is not to say if an individual has an amazing idea, it will not be considered, not at all. It's just that from what we have seen so far, the future of healthcare seems to be very interdisciplinary, requiring a lot of different types of expertise. And this will likely speak to the feasibility, which is an important criteria of the grant. Projects, we will look for projects that utilize a diverse set of resources, novel integration of different data types, basically the future of healthcare. What will it likely be? Next slide, please. There are several criteria that will be adjudicated in equal sort of form. The project rationale, goals, and the innovative nature of the project, the approach and the methods, the impact, which is very important, and make it real, and the team and the roles. So this is and the feasibility, of course, of the grant. So the team and the roles, all of this combines to ensure that the feasibility and the project milestones can be achieved. Each one of these five criteria will be adjudicated in equal measure, and this is to allow people who have an amazing idea and have a path to feasibility and are just trying to explore it to be able to get ahead as well. Budget justification should be provided again towards feasibility, so we understand how what is the plan to achieve the goals. Next slide. So we are doing something slightly different for the review procedure, and that is it will be reviewed by an international panel of experts with both AI and clinical expertise. This is as expected, but upon review, a short list of applicants will be given a chance to provide to improve their grant. So we will be providing the feedback to all applicants, but the short list will be given a chance to respond to the feedback and to present to the adjudication panel. And this is, again, speaks to the amount of support we are hoping to provide to our grantees throughout the grant as well. We really want you to succeed. So once that presentation is made, the responses will be evaluated, and innovation and feasibility will be the top priorities of granting the two grants. The decisions will be announced in the summer, the summer. Next slide. this is the portal where you'll be submitting a grant, but a lot of the information that we just presented, we wanted to reiterate because A, it's important, B, there were some frequently asked questions about it, and C, to tell you that this is actually a lot of this information we also put on the website, so that if you forget any of this, this information is available there, and we keep completing our frequently asked questions as well. So please, if after this session you don't get your question answered, please contact Zoriana with your questions, and we will make sure that we keep addressing them. The grants are due on April 30th, and we are really looking forward to your ideas and proposals. Next slide, please. We will start with frequently asked questions that were already submitted. We will spend hopefully not too much time so that you can ask further questions, but just to address those that have already been asked of us ahead of this meeting. Mjaye?
So this is a very common question. In fact, this is a question that has come in the Q&A during this presentation. So can students apply as principal investigators without a faculty PI? The answer is yes. The only eligibility criteria is that the principal applicant be a T-CAIREM member. And again, this gets back to this sort of core concept that we're looking for the best ideas. You do not have to have a faculty PI in order to put in an application. The process of rebuttal that Anna was just describing as part of the grant, where if you have an extraordinary idea that ideally needs some tweaking or adjusting in order to achieve a threshold level of feasibility or provide you with the likely resources that you're going to need to succeed, does include us potentially suggesting people in the community that might be good faculty PIs if you're a student and you're applying and you don't actually have a PI and it's something that you identify that you might need. I will say that I want to make it clear that process would be, we would suggest faculty PIs if that's something that you identify that you need, that we think might be suited to your proposal, but it would still be the responsibility of the PI and the student in this case to essentially pitch that proposal to the PI to see if they would be interested in joining your proposal. One of the key tenets of T-CAIREM is this concept of catalyzing the community. We want this to be a mutually reinforcing community, and a community that can build upon these extraordinary ideas, and as Anna said, allow you to succeed. And in order to try to facilitate this sort of communication between anyone interested in applying and people that they think might need to be on their proposal with them, a member directory will be coming to the website in mid-April, explaining who the T-CAIREM members are. And that's an additional important resource if you're trying to understand who else in the community you might need to partner with in order to realize an idea that you have. Next slide, please.
Question also asked several times during the preliminary sort of screening is what are the priority areas? There are no specific priority areas that will be given preference. Basic science projects are definitely welcome. The goal of the innovation grants is to identify ideas that have the potential to transform healthcare. So if it's a basic science project, please sort of articulate very well what you expect the impact on transforming healthcare will be. So all the projects will need to make sure to speak to the innovation and feasibility. And these are important criteria for all projects. there was a specific question about basic science projects and medical education projects. So Mjaye and I are not in the field of medical education, so we can't even potentially think of some of the projects that might come up. So we are certainly looking forward to all kinds of projects, but please make sure that there is a clearly outlined path to impact in healthcare long term. So these are this can be exploratory, but with a very clear goal in mind. And that is something that will be evaluated. The impact, the importance of the grant is impact, feasibility, and innovation. All of these will be considered very seriously. Next slide, please.
What I would like to do is actually maybe continue Anna's answer, just looking at some of the questions that are being submitted. One of the questions that is just submitted was how relevant is the generalizability of the the proposal rather, meaning if it's a niche project, but something that can revolutionize the care of a small group of patients, would it still be considered? The answer to that is yes. That would absolutely be considered. You don't have to have a proposal that will help every patient in the future. If you have a revolutionary idea that can assist a small group of patients, please do apply. And then just one other question that I want to quickly address before I address the question on this slide is, are you receptive to patient-focused projects? This is AI-informed decision-making, for example. The answer to that is yes. So please do apply if that's a proposal that you think, again, can revolutionize healthcare in the next 20 years. So looking at the question on the slide here, what priority areas will be given preference? Oh, sorry. So what are you expecting in terms of multidisciplinary teams? So several things about this. We as Anna already described, think that the future of medicine will involve transdisciplinary collaboration and this transdisciplinary synthesis to solve the very complex problems that we face. We don't have specific expectations. And what I mean by that is we are not requiring multidisciplinary teams as an absolute prerequisite of application. If you are not putting in an application as part of a multidisciplinary team, I do not want you to be discouraged from doing so. Your application will still be considered and rated on the merits of the idea that you propose. Multidisciplinary teams in this context then would be, if you are applying as part of a multidisciplinary team, the disciplines that you think you need to achieve what it is that you're setting out to do. We don't have any specific expectations of what those disciplinary silos will be, because that will vary depending upon the nature of your proposal. The second question here is, do we need all collaborators confirmed at the submission of the proposal? So the answer to this one is also no. You don't need to have all of your collaborators confirmed, meaning we wouldn't expect you to submit necessarily letters of support. However, it's important to understand that if you have some key collaborator that you're going to require as part of realizing the idea that you're putting forward, having your collaborators confirmed at the time of submission of your proposal will speak to the feasibility of what it is that you intend to do. And that'll probably affect the rating of your proposal from the standpoint of feasibility. So it is not required, but it's advantageous to have your collaborators confirmed. And that also speaks to the final part of this question. Do we need letters of support from partners? Next slide, please.
The review criteria, I already mentioned the 5 review criteria and the weights. I have mentioned in the previous presentation, in the previous sort of upstream of this slide. This are also listed on our website, so I really hope that you take a look. But basically, goals and innovation, feasibility, there are 5 criteria that are weighted equally. Maybe I'll ask Zoriana just so I don't make a mistake in listing them off. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So rationale, objectives, and innovation, approach and methods, impact, team, and feasibility are well, feasibility with milestones and timelines are the major criteria that will be equally weighted. Thank you, Zoriana. Can you scroll back, please? All right, so, but then again, if you have any doubts, please take a look at the website. They are also listed there. Do we need pilot data? So it's not a requirement for this grant to have pilot data, but it may strengthen your application as usual. So if you do have pilot data and which proves your point, please include it. This is as always with grants, right? We are looking for feasibility. So pilot data helps, but is not necessary. Yeah, figures, if a figure can explain a concept that you would like, we certainly would welcome including figures up to 3. Please include no more than 3 figures, and they will not count towards the overall word count. So these are separate. The duration and amount we commented on already, it's up to 2 years. The total is 200K. It's not 200K per year. The funding will not be renewed as planned for the second year. We have a total of 200K per grant. There was a question in the Q&A about no cost extensions, specifically if the grant is becomes available during the pandemic. So several things I'd like to say about this. We are planning to announce the results of the grant sometime mid-summer, sort of mid to late July. So it will most certainly start during the pandemic with the rate of vaccination, unfortunately, here. It will start. There will be no cost extension for those grants that are funded. But if you believe that the idea that you have cannot at all be executed until the pandemic is fully over, then maybe it's a better idea to apply in a second round so that you could start right away. If you have a part that requires there to be no pandemic, maybe you have an analytic part that can take place in the first half of the year and then otherwise. But the pandemic is here, and I think the timelines should be for the grant should be structured accordingly for the feasibility to make sure that it's feasible to get executed within the time that you are proposing. Now, you know, at the end of 2 years, if you're almost done and you still have some money left, I think we can do a no cost extension. We will have to confirm that with sort of with a team, but I don't know. I'm hoping I've answered your question, Sharon. If not, I'm happy to elaborate on that further. Next slide, please.
So this just reiterates something that we've said earlier in this presentation. Basically, what exactly is a high-risk, high-reward project? We had in mind things that other agencies are unlikely to fund. Again, your bravest ideas. Want to draw your attention one more time to the term outlandish. We very, very much wanted you to put your thinking caps on and aspire, if you will, to what healthcare might look like and suggest how we all might get there over the next 2 decades. Can individuals be co-PIs on multiple applications? So an individual can only be a PI on a single application, but you can be a co-I or a team member on multiple applications. So as long as those criteria are met, one individual can be on multiple applications as long as they're only the PI on a single application. You are not able to be the PI on multiple applications. So the next question actually is worth addressing because again, it speaks to what we're trying to do as part of T-CAIREM more broadly. T-CAIREM is an extra departmental unit, and it has that designation specifically because we are not targeting a specific department or faculty. The idea is to basically broadly catalyze the community across departments and faculties within the University of Toronto. So no specific department or faculty is being targeted by this request for proposals. Again, what we are seeking is the most extraordinary ideas. Members of all faculties and all departments are therefore encouraged to apply. And just a reminder, the only criteria is that the PI must be a T-CAIREM member. Next slide, please.
I've been sort of trying to answer the questions that are coming up. There was a quick question before I go through this list. There was a question about figures versus tables. So figures or tables are fine. Only 3 are allowed. The PDF, it may be tricky to paste figures into the PDF. We can allow an attachment of I guess 3 pages, 1 per figure or table. If there are difficulties, we'll have to test the system. We'll make sure that you are able to submit the best quality figures that you want to submit for this grant. So we'll speak with Zoriana and Dom to make sure that this is possible. In terms of restrictions regarding the use of granting funds, there was a question about can money be used towards salary? The answer is no. The PI salary, no. For operation funds for students, etc. Of course. There must be a budget justification. If there are any changes to the applicant's positions or institutions, please let us know. Oh, I guess you must let us know this language. PIs must provide appropriate invoicing for all the expenses. Funds can be used to support research associates, students, data access and storage, conferences, publications, computer technical support, equipment, instruments, supplies, antigens, whatever you need to execute your grant successfully or your project successfully. I guess with respect to grant funds, the expenses must align with the University of Toronto Guide to Financial Management. There is a specific line here saying that it cannot go towards principal applicant's salary and not for rent, utilities, university overhead. None of these fringe costs are permitted. Applicants may allocate up to 2% of their total budget estimate for community service or outreach beyond the scope of their proposed research plan. This will also be honored. I think this is our last slide. So we are happy to answer any further questions that you might have. This session is also being recorded, and we can post the slides separately as well, so that on the frequently asked questions page.
And maybe while we wait for additional questions, I wanted to point out that as you probably noted, the conditions under which you can choose to use funds for your application are very flexible, and that's deliberate. We aren't mandating that certain amounts of the funding that successful applicants receive go to a certain type of expense, because we expect a pretty substantial diversity of applications, and we want investigators to have the flexibility to use the funds in the way that they need to successfully execute their projects. So the list of exclusions, in other words, is much, 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 much shorter than the list of inclusions.
There is a question about a resident physician. If a resident physician is a co-PI, but there are two main PIs, can the funding go towards the salary for the analysis that the resident physician is doing? And I would say yes. Mjaye?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't take any time at all to become a T-CAIREM member. This is actually maybe something specifically that Zoriana can speak to in more detail.
Absolutely. So we have an application on our website that you have to complete. It doesn't take very long, maybe 5-6 minutes. And the only criteria for T-CAIREM member is that you have to have an affiliation with either the University of Toronto or one of U of T's affiliate organizations. And a list of affiliate organizations is also posted on the website. So you need to provide your official email address either for University of Toronto or the affiliate organization and complete the application. And usually we will confirm your membership within a few days.
There is a question about co-investigators being allocated outside of Canada and the limits being placed to the access of funding. So a couple of things here. One is that one of the co-investors, one of the members of the team has to be T-CAIREM. So that for now means that they will be likely at U of T. We are planning to open it, but not yet. The membership outside of the university. I would say if you have a revolutionary idea and there is your members of your team are outside of Canada and they are the ones that will do the best to execute on this idea, I think the funding can go to outside of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that Mjaye and I discussed only briefly, but our consensus is that we really want transformational ideas, and it's possible that some of the expertise is currently outside of Canada, and we want to make sure that these ideas come here and are executed. That Canada benefits from them as well.
There's a question here about how would we rate an application that used existing AI techniques but for an innovative application. I think that if there is a very innovative application that you have in mind and you can clearly articulate the impact or the feasibility, then we would rate that application high. So the fact that it's an existing AI technique wouldn't count against your proposal if you score highly in the criteria that Anna detailed as part of the application.
Zoriana, there is a question about how long it takes to become a T-CAIREM member. Can you please comment on that?
Yes, so once you complete the application on our website and submit it, we usually confirm your membership within a couple of days.
And if I could just so can we work with industrial partners? So the answer to this one is also yes. And that's, we mentioned this sort of philosophy that we think that the future of healthcare is going to be transdisciplinary. I think that the future of healthcare is also probably going to involve much more agile public-private partnerships. And so you would have to articulate exactly what that industrial partnership looked like and why that was the correct partner. but that absolutely can be part of your application.
There are a couple of questions about indirect costs. Yes, our comment was regarding that U of T will not take overhead out of this grant. I think there was another question upstream about the hospital taking overhead out of this grant. I would hope not. We will have to confirm. I don't know. I don't think this question was answered yet. In terms of AI, applied AI versus sort of machine learning projects that use either innovation in the area of machine learning or deep learning using conventional ML is okay, regression random forest, is certainly perfectly fine to use traditional machine learning algorithms, but in a sort of innovative way, right? Innovation is part of the consideration in this grant. So if you're using, if it's similar to what's been done in the past and has basically the same outcome, it will be ranked lower compared to the grants that have similar techniques but apply to completely new sort of questions and ideas for the more applied grants. Yeah.
There's a question that we haven't yet addressed. Why is visibility a high value indicator? Please explain. I'd like to understand the value of this indicator for the judging panel. I must confess that I don't completely recall using that specific language. I do want to re-emphasize something because I think this ties back to a question that was asked earlier. Visibility in this context wouldn't necessarily mean some sort of notorious healthcare problem that's in the news right now. The question that was asked earlier about, would a problem, for instance, would a very innovative, revolutionary approach to a smaller group of patients be rated? And the answer is yes, it would be rated highly if it was a very well articulated project that was innovative, that had a high impact, and that seemed feasible. And so visibility in this context doesn't necessarily mean a problem that's in the news. If you can articulate why this is a problem or an innovative approach, your proposal will be highly ranked if it's well constructed.
Yeah, so two questions came up. Beyond this funding opportunity, are there calls coming up in the future? Most certainly. We are planning to have calls every year, and different kinds of calls, potentially with a specific focus. So yes, please stay tuned for opportunities coming up down the pipeline. And there is a question about the funding in terms of if institute always takes some overhead, should it be budgeted? And I think we'll have to take it back to talk to our team to see what are the restrictions on the funds that were allocated to us to provide as grant funding. U of T will not take overhead, that we know, but we don't know about other institutions, and so we will have to consult, and we will post the answer in the FAQ. If you don't hear from us in a timely manner, it's not posted for some reason in FAQ, please contact Zariana again, and we will have the answer for you by then. We will investigate this right away.
If I can, while we wait for another question, if I can actually maybe even add something more to the answer that Anna just gave to the question about additional funding calls coming up in the near future, because it gives us an opportunity to talk about CAIREM more broadly. We're very focused on this specific research application in this discussion, but ideally what these funding opportunities are going to be able to do in the near future is rely on some of the other T-CAIREM infrastructure. So basically, the goal of these requests for funding is to try to create a collaborative community that catalyzes these ideas, and that's going to be a combination of targeted research funding, like what we're talking about on this webinar, but also ideally other resources going forward. Educational opportunities, i.e. the ability to get an idea out into the community, hosting opportunities for data sets on the infrastructure that's being constructed, just to try to, again, catalyze the community. So just to re-emphasize that the answer is absolutely, there will be additional funding opportunities coming in the future.
There are two more questions that came up. Would a clinical focused grant that can be deployed within 2 years be a good proposal? Absolutely. We are certainly looking for impact. I guess this question is in light of our sort of vision for a 20-year impact or 10 to 20-year impact. And we are seeing this as bringing technology to the bedside is one of such impacts that it will be ubiquitous. And it is certainly not a standard now. And if you have a pathway, if you propose a pathway by means of which such innovations can be brought into the bedside, it is certainly a welcome application. A proposal about educational perspective of AI in medicine for clinicians. I think as long as you are very clear, as the proposal is very clear about the impact of the proposal and sort of feasibility, what is the achievement? If it's just sort of an exploratory sort of survey-based proposal, I think it might rank less on the impact scale. So if you have sort of an idea for how it should be transformed, and you have a clear impact, and you have lined up the milestones to achieve towards your goal, it will certainly be considered.
There's an excellent question here from Peter. He's saying basically that multidisciplinary reviews of applications can often be mixed. What training is being considered for reviewers and adjudication of applications? So basically, what is the suggestion about the sweet spot between using lay language that very clearly communicates an idea to a broad audience and technical jargon? This is a pretty sophisticated group of reviewers. They were selected because they are people that are technically sophisticated and working productively in this space. And so, I think that the sweet spot is going to be a combination of the two, specifically enough clear articulation of the problem in lay language that we all understand what problem you're trying to solve, but enough technical jargon that we are able to ascertain that it's likely that you are taking the correct methodological approach to solving the problem. So I don't want to discourage you from using technical jargon where you think it's appropriate to clearly communicate what it is that you intend to do.
We specifically looked for, that's why it's a broad international panel. We have done our best to engage members of the Canadian and international community who are the leaders of AI in healthcare.
Perhaps as we wait for more questions to come in, I can address the template that is posted on the website. So there is a template that provides the layout of the application and all the relevant sections and the word limits for each section. However, you don't need to submit your application in that specific template. You can complete the application in a Word document as long as you follow all of the criteria that are outlined in the template and all of the word limits that are outlined. So you can complete it in a Word document and include any figures in the Word document, and then PDF the whole thing and send it to us. So you don't specifically need to do it in that specific template. That might make it easier for people who have different versions of Adobe and with certain capabilities.
Yeah, and this fits with the questions about edit pages for figures. Yes, you can add pages for figures, up to 3 pages for figures/tables. There's a new question. What do we consider innovative or impactful? Innovation in methodology, such as deep learning, which is more technical, versus an innovation in application. I guess I can start commenting. I'm sure Mjaye will have more to add. This is an AI in healthcare grant. The impact should be very clear for healthcare. So if you have a completely new deep learning methodology that is suitable for the NeurIPS submission, this is fantastic. But unless it has and the impact on healthcare that you can articulate and show sort of the pathway to for this innovation to come and help healthcare in a tangible way, it will not be ranked as highly as those that do show such impact. That's why what is innovative is relatively broad. It could be a methodology. It could be an application, a new application of existing methodology. All of these will be considered as long as the impact is great that I just mentioned is clear in the application. Mjaye, would you like to?
No, I think that that's actually very well said. There's a question here just asking again about sort of further clarification about this additional figures and tables piece. It's not necessarily 3 additional pages. It's specifically in addition to the application that's described on the website. What Zoriana was just covering with the specific sort of limits for each of the sections, you're able to include 3 additional figures.
Or tables.
It can be or a table, correct. 3 additional figures or tables, not necessarily 3 additional pages.
Right. And the references, there is a separate sort of box for references, if I'm not mistaken. Zoriana, can you clarify?
Yes, please do include your references, and references don't count in the word limit or the page limit. So each section of the proposal has a word limit. So please do adhere to those word limits. However, references are not part of the word limit or the page limit.
There is a question about detail on the infrastructure that we can provide. T-CAIREM is working on developing such an infrastructure, but it is not available yet. So if you require an infrastructure, it should be budgeted into your grant. And if this grant is funded, we will sort of stay in touch regarding the infrastructure that we may be able to provide by the time of the grant funding, but this is not guaranteed. So your budget should include an infrastructure item if you require it, whether on-prem or cloud. I think I already mentioned, but can proposal address new methodologies to enhance diagnosis techniques? Yes, most certainly would be excited about new methodologies as long as their impact on healthcare is clearly articulated. Do we have an Excel template for budget?
We do not have an Excel template for a budget, so you can include your own categories and the amounts that are relevant to your project.
And I think that there's the second part of this question. Do you expect that we include mention about in-kind support? So I think that speaks to feasibility. If you have a very, very ambitious proposal that isn't able to be funded by the amount of funding on offer, but you have in-kind support, then absolutely mention it.
The announcement of award will be made in the summer, but when can people actually start spending their money, I guess, and covering costs? I believe the funding will be available as soon as the announcements are made. Now, I have heard, and this speaks back to Sharon's question about so what happens if it requires, RIB or some preparations, and the money would be to start spending in a sort of a month time, and some of these bureaucratic things that might take longer before the money the costs can be incurred. I think this will be considered on a case-by-case basis, and if there is sufficient explanation to provide it for a funded project that requires a delay, not a big, but a relatively reasonably short delay in starting to incur expenses, then they will be considered and discussed, and we'll try to facilitate that. But the plan is to try to start providing funding with a announcement of the winning grants, the awarded grants.
There's an interesting question here about a video demo of prototypes. Can we paste a hyperlink into the proposal body, and will a reviewer look at it? So I'm speaking personally, a fan of this sort of multimedia link, if you think that it effectively communicates what it is that you're trying to achieve. I think that can be done in one of two ways. You can paste that into the body of the text, or you can use that essentially as a substitute for a figure. So essentially refer the reviewers to your video demo in place of a figure. So yes, that is permitted if it's the most efficient way of transmitting the information that you're trying to get across to the reviewers.
And then it will count towards the 3. Yeah. So the project description should be as self-inclusive as possible. And I agree with Mjaye that the video demo link can be put as part of one of the 3 figures or tables and used in that space, and that their viewers would still look at it. Will be part of the evaluation.
Mm-hmm. There's a question, just to reiterate, the most recent question is basically saying that the questioner missed the early part of the seminar. The seminar will be posted in its entirety for you to review afterwards. Just to quickly answer your question, there are 2 awards. Each award is $200,000. The amount of money can be spent over 1 year or over 2 years, but it isn't $200,000 per year. It's $200,000 total. As far as working in a larger group, that's really dependent on your proposal. You know, multidisciplinary collaborations are encouraged but not required. And the nature of that multidisciplinary collaboration is very dependent upon the nature of your proposal. That might be one other, say, for instance, sort of domain expertise. That might be a group of 12 other people. So we don't really have an expectation. We would just want to make sure that you've thought of who your multidisciplinary collaborators are, if that's going to be a fundamental part of being able to achieve what you're trying to achieve in the proposal. So this speaks again to the feasibility of what it is that you're trying to do.
I think we have only 3 minutes left. So as was previously mentioned, we are very happy to support you in applying for this grant and happy to answer questions that will ensure that you put your best grant forward. Please, come up with completely out of the box ideas. We would be delighted to review them and with the international adjudicators. But most frequently asked questions will be posted on the webpage as well. If you have any other questions, then maybe reach out to Zoriana, and she will be able to address your questions offline. Total grants will be 2, and it will be up to 200K total.
So as we wrap up, just to reiterate that a video of this recording of this session will be posted on our website in about a day or two. So for those that have missed some questions, you can review them. And if you have additional questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is zoriana.salo@utoronto.ca. It can also be found on the T-CAIREM website. If you have not submitted your registration for T-CAIREM membership, please do so, as you must be a T-CAIREM member in order to be eligible for the grants. So please submit your registration. Information can also be found on our website. We usually confirm our members within a couple of days. So we have 1 more minute left. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this session. We look forward to receiving your applications. And thank you, Dr. Goldenberg and Dr. Mazwi, for answering the questions from our community. Much appreciated for your time.
We look forward to your submissions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck.